Boom! Kayla Tyrrell.
Yep.
Welcome to the My Tribe podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
For joining us and my millions of followers.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Tell our people a little bit about who you are, how we know each other, from your perspective, and and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, perfect. So we met at F45. Mm-hmm. I only met you maybe like 2-3 times prior to us becoming half friends.
Yeah.
And from there, I was joking. I was like, yo, have me on the podcast. And then you're like, yeah, you're in. And so then from there, that's how we're here at this present day. You knew nothing about me. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I made the cut. No credentials needed. But, we love to see it. So here today, just talking about all things health, nutrition, kind of how I got to be where I am in the dietetics field. And I can go into that more if you want.
Yeah. So what do you do now?
Yes. So I just finished up my master's last year in nutrition and dietetics. And then I got my first job in September, moved to Fort Lauderdale and to work as a dietitian, health educator, wellness specialist, things like that currently. And then eventually do want to go into more private practice, one-on-one counseling.
Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful. That's a lot of titles there.
Yes.
Seems like they're very important.
Not that important, but a lot of years of work in order to get to where I am today, I guess. Even though I'm only 25, I think it just took a lot of schooling to accomplish all of the different certifications and degrees to get to have the platform that I have now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you hope to do with that platform?
That's a great question. So I think a lot of my passion is to be, enthusiastic about health, nutrition, lifestyle, exercise. And I think sharing that passion with others to then help them succeed and achieve their goals is a big passion of mine. So kind of using what I've learned in my passion to help others succeed in their health journey and just their longevity overall, I would say, both emotionally, spiritually, and I think the nutrition and health aspect of it too.
How important is nutrition in terms of people achieving their goals, in your opinion?
I would say it's pretty important. And I feel like I've learned that, especially this past year, just seeing all the different health conditions that there are and how impacted they are by nutrition. So when you think about it, you have to use your brain for pretty much every task you do. And if you're not fueling your brain and your gut with the right foods and adequate nutrition, then you really can't be at your optimal health. And I think a lot of people, some take time for themselves, but maybe not in their nutrition and health, but in other areas. And sometimes I think it is an overlooked concept because it can be right in front of you. It's so simple, oh, everyone eats food. But it's when you sit down and kind of take a step back of oh, what am I eating? Let's look at our nutrition labels and see what the actual ingredients are in here and kind of evaluating it in that perspective. I think people can achieve a lot more than they think they can just by making a few modifications.
And those modifications, that's what you help people do?
Yeah. So I would say a large part of my job is educating, because a lot of patients just don't understand, what nutrients impact what parts of the body. So I think that's a big part of it. And then also just customizing it to their specific health need at the time. So, a lot of patients have multiple areas of health concerns. So, focusing on the top priority first and addressing that. And then oftentimes when you address that root cause, then everything kind of falls into place like a puzzle, kind of. So.
without getting names, what could be an example? Like, could you give an example of that, of like addressing a root cause where helped all the other dominoes fall into place?
Yeah. So I think a lot of what I like to work with is like gut conditions. So sometimes, gut conditions can be very related to mental health as well, which a lot of people don't realize. I think, especially now, I think mental health has become a pretty large issue in our world. And I think a lot of people forget that like our gut and our mind are so connected and linked. And so I would say for one, looking at the gut, looking at the different bacterias and pathogens that can enter the gut, and just how vulnerable our gut can be to our overall mental health. So a lot of what I do is testing as well, as I mentioned to you. So blood testing, saliva testing, stool, urine testing, things like that, which actually give you an inside look to someone's body, right? Because we can talk about their symptoms and what they're feeling, which is great. And we can try to still, support those in certain ways just with the knowledge that I have. But when you get the, specific levels back and you can truly see what's going on in specific organs or things like that, it helps you address that specific bacteria that is taking place in your gut, and whether it's in a high amount, overabundance, or a lower amount that we need to address and support in a supplement or a diet, specific food. By doing that and kind of healing the gut, supporting the gut in what it needs, it can impact our neurotransmitters, which obviously would impact like their mental health condition. So things like that, I think I have a passion for, just because I can see so much good that can come from it, rather than just being like, oh, you're super sad or you're super anxious. Like, man, I wish I could do more for you, or like, let me bake you a meal. I think like I'm so action oriented that like, oh, I can't wait to help them. But it's like helping them not only with like supporting them as a friend, or bringing them something that'll make their day, really getting to the root cause behind why they're acting the way they're acting, or like how they're feeling, I think is pretty impactful in the long run. And not that those other things aren't great, but I think it's cool that I've had that education so I can do it all in a little package.
So if like a kid is misbehaving in school, may not be the teacher or the parent or not disciplining.
Right.
It could be how his breakfast is being served or not, or what's in his lunchbox. Could be the root of the problem that's causing his chemical imbalances in his stomach, therefore causing chemical imbalances in his brain.
Yes. And there are, specific genetic mutations that you can be born with it, that, one child might be worse off than another and might have more aggravated symptoms because of that. But I think even the other day I was speaking to this woman, and her child had severe ADHD. And so in school, I think it was a little boy, he was struggling to even, get through a sentence, writing down a sentence. And I don't know what grade he's in, but I think he's in elementary school. And she was saying how we started supplementing him with phosphatidylserine, and he just saw so much benefit. He wasn't acting out anymore. His teacher didn't have to come over and, correct him many times. He didn't need like the hand holding as much, just simply by supporting his body with this nutrient. So things like that, I'm like, how cool is that? Like I feel like even a few years ago, people wouldn't have known. They just would have, gotten upset or, been aggravated with the child for acting out. But he really, like, he or she may or may not be able to control that as much as you would like them to. So yes, I think by supplementation, and even in their diet, like avoiding the food dyes is such a big one, and sugar is such a big one for the developmental aspect of a child's brain. And I think there is more research about it now, but growing up, like I don't know, I ate sugar all the time. Like,
yeah,
my parents didn't know. And now that like we have grown in our health knowledge, my mom is so on board with all the health things. And I feel like it's so different now than even when we were growing up and kids. So
yeah.
yeah.
And I was just thinking about that little boy. I mean, 50 years ago, kid acting up, acting like that.
Yeah.
Probably catch a backhand or a ruler from the Catholic nuns.
Yeah.
And you go a little, you go 20 years ago, put them on Adderall, put them on a pill, and put them on a narcotic that's going to get them dialed in, and he can't focus on anything but what's in front of him.
Right.
And that happened to me. I had ADHD.
Okay.
And I was taking the Ritalin or Adderall or whatever it was I was prescribed, and I was like, I can't unfocus from what I'm looking at.
Okay.
And I wasn't myself.
Yes.
And I really didn't want to. It almost felt like a loss of control.
Yeah.
And I haven't taken anything like that since.
Interesting.
And it was just a very uncomfortable experience. But so it was a supplement that was able to help him? Like,
yes. So
what is that called?
Phosphatidylserine.
Okay.
It's a type of amino acid, and I'm definitely not an expert on this specific amino acid, but just based off what I was looking at in the research and for ADHD, looking at different protocols and things, and by protocols I just mean like a document that describes the condition, and then it'll have nutrients in the diet, and then supplements and lifestyle changes that you can make to benefit it. So again, I have more of an integrative approach to things. So again, I'm not against medication in any way. I think they can work together.
Okay. Yeah.
In some cases, I do focus more on the natural things first. But yes, in his case, phosphatidylserine helped his brain significantly, basically just positively impacting his neurotransmitters, which play a pretty large role in ADHD. And as you mentioned, Adderall, also a big topic over the past few years, just, people taking it whether they have the condition or not. And it really does impact your GI, your mood, everything like that. And so it's sad to see. I've seen so many patients, even when I was back working at the University of Kansas Medical Center, so many patients were on this, and they were having all these GI issues, and they weren't eating because it suppresses their appetite. And there's so many cautions and side effects that can come from it. Even I have close friends who are taking it, and I'm like, you don't know what it's doing to your body. Like, yes, it might be helping you focus, which is good. Like, the intent behind it, I do think is good, but it's like, but look at all these other things that are going wrong. And you can probably attest, I haven't taken it, but you can probably attest to that more than I can. But yeah, I think the supplementation route and going the natural way, it is still seen to be effective. And I think more and more research is coming out to support that. And it's cool to hear people's stories too, just every single day, how impactful nutrition and just natural supplements can be.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen a lot of that with my friends as well.
Yeah.
Tell me they couldn't eat. I'm
yeah.
like, I don't want to feel like that.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in getting to that point.
Yeah.
I'd rather get a B- or a C than suffer for 48 hours and get an A.
Yeah.
It was just not, the risk didn't equal the reward at that point in my life. But in terms of people's stories, thank you for sharing that one. That little boy. It's actually very weird that I came up with that example.
Yeah.
That was the direct one that you thought of. Amazing.
I know, and it's not one that's like, some days I'll have like such a standout where I'm like, what a crazy story that I'm witnessing, and like have a platform to speak into their lives as just an encouragement as a human being, but also in a platform where I'm able to make suggestions. And so it's interesting because that one to me also isn't a huge standout, but it must have been the perfect one.
That's it. Well, we kind of jumped in. We talked about what you're doing now.
Yes.
Let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
What got you to where you are today? Where are you from? Give me a little background on yourself.
411. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm from Chicago, outside of Chicago, about 30 minutes west of the city.
Okay.
I don't know how familiar are you. But yeah, from Chicago. My family was all raised there. So my mom and dad both are originally from Chicago, outside of Chicago in suburbs. My dad's one of 7, my mom's one of 5. So we had a very big extended family. And then it's just me and my brother. My brother is 27 now, policeman in Chicago. So we went 2 different routes, but both very much helping people, I think, in different ways. And certainly. I think we would both attribute that to our parents, both just really hardworking people, come from a really strong family. So I think that's gotten me to where I am today, because they've always just been there for me, supporting me and pushing me. And I think it's really given me the drive to achieve more and to, push myself and succeed in a way that's not about me, but like about supporting other people. And I think a lot of people don't get that, whether it's because they didn't have that type of family or just because, they're wired differently or whatever it may be. But I think that's one thing that I'll always be grateful for, and I'll always credit my parents for the person I am today, for sure. So anyways, growing up, great family life, just a lot of fun with our extended family, always hosting people. Yeah, just a lot of family fun. Food, we always hosted Thanksgiving, Christmas. Loved cooking. My little easy bake oven is what started me. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my dad actually owned a Dairy Queen when I grew up, so ate ice cream every day.
Were you scooping behind in high school?
Yes, of course. Everyone in the family had to work there. Did I accidentally dump a blizzard on someone's head one time? Yes. Maybe not on their head. Sorry, just on that. You have to flip it to show the thickness.
Yes.
So I only worked there maybe like 2 years because I was forced to, but I loved it. I wouldn't change it.
Were you fired for this instead?
No. It was melty because it was hot out, but you had to flip it to show the thickness. It was this like promotional thing at one point you had to
I remember that, yeah.
So if you flip it and there was an issue, you just had to give them a free one.
Okay.
So that was like my one snafu with Dairy Queen. All my cousins succeeded much longer there than my brother and I did. Fun fact. Anyways, so I think just growing up with loving to cook, loving to, be in that environment. I always wanted to be like a professional chef, something of that nature. But, it's not always the most financially stable career. It can be if you're really good, but I'm not that good. So decided to go a little bit of a different route. Have always loved math and science. So I was like, maybe, something in that world. And then my senior year of high school, my dad got pretty sick. And so he had a kidney and stem cell transplant on my birthday. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, this is the worst birthday gift ever. Like, I'm in the hospital with my dad. Like, is everything going to be okay? And it was really, really hard. But I think in that time, he was seeing a dietitian who basically, I would say, saved his life, aside from my cousin who donated his kidney to save my dad's life. Wow. So it was like so many different moving pieces. But I think that is a big part of my story, just because not only did it impact my faith and my family, but my career. So I think seeing how much food and supplements continue to save his life and to continue to support his health played a really big role into me ultimately pursuing that the next year when I went to college. So found a undergraduate degree program that was certified in nutrition, which you have to be if you want to be a RD. You have to go to a certified dietetics program. Okay. So did that at Samford, which is in Alabama, which from Chicago is quite the culture shock, but didn't know anyone there, had never been to Alabama, but I knew it was a really good school. Okay. So decided... Samford with an N.
Oh, Samford. Okay.
Yeah. I know people are always like, you went to Stanford? I'm like,
No,
yeah.
no, that's out west. You're down south.
So went there, and then, you know, met a lot of great people along the way to do my degree. And then from there, went to get my master's at KU Med Center in Kansas City. So that was a 2-year program. And in that, you also do an internship that qualifies you to take the registered dietitian's exam.
Okay.
So you had to do a year-long internship, and then you can take the exam.
Gotcha.
And then the master's, it wasn't required at the time when I was doing it, but now it is. So in 2024, they made it a mandatory situation where you have to have a master's to be an RD now.
Okay.
So don't know why, probably just like further education. So yeah, that's what got me to where I am.
Why should people work with a dietitian and somebody with all this schooling and background?
Yes, I would say, you know, a lot of the times I think growing up we're taught, you know, always go with what your doctor says, go the conventional route, which can be great depending on, you know, where you're going with and things like that. But I think a dietitian brings a different, it depends on the type of dietitian. I would say, like, I ended up getting an extra degree or certification in integral and functional medicine. So the way that I view things, it's more of a comprehensive, holistic approach. Some dietitians, they're more clinically based.
Gotcha.
So you can be a dietitian and work in a hospital and, you know, go that route, which is great. It wasn't the best fit for me just because I wanted to be able to spend more time with people, get to know their story, their journey, and that really impacts your health. And so I think to work with a dietitian is to honestly just be like counseled and guided in a way where you're looking at the full picture. You're not just looking at the specific disease or health concern. And I think a lot of people miss that sometimes because there's so many factors that can play into why a person has the condition. For example, like their upbringing, you know, if they were extremely stressed, they came from, you know, a divorced family, things like that can really have an impact on a person even once they get to be 30, 40 years old, just because it truly impacts your gut. Even if you were breastfed or bottle fed, like that'll change certain characteristics internally in your body for the rest of your life. So I think understanding that about people and not just, you know, checking people off a list, oh, I saw my patient for today, but really approaching it as more of a conversation and, you know, a safe place to ask questions and also get proper education from, you know, someone that has gone to school for it for a pretty long time, I would say is a part to why you should.
Okay.
Many parts, but I would say that's a few.
Beautiful. What's been, I guess, your relationship to nutrition and diet personally?
Yeah. So I think, again, growing up, loved all things sweet. Probably wasn't the healthiest eater because I was just, you know, active little thing. Didn't really care about what I ate. I would say starting in high school is probably when I got more dialed in, locked in. So my mom actually has Hashimoto's, which is a autoimmune thyroid condition. So she went gluten-free. She started getting into all things health. And then I was having really bad headaches out of nowhere. I was really active. I always did really well in school. So I had no, you know, on paper, no blood work issues or anything like that. And so my mom was like, maybe you try going gluten-free. Like, it's really helped me in my health. And at the time, it was not a cool thing to do. It was very uncool. So I was like, whatever, I'll try it. And none of my friends had like any food restrictions. And so I tried it. Immediately, all my headaches went away. I wasn't getting sick as much. I used to get sick all the time for some reason.
Really?
And I wasn't getting sick as much. And so ever since then, I just felt so much better. And then just having an interest in, you know, science, I always wanted to understand the why behind things. So kind of, starting in high school, I would do all these research papers about GMOs and, dumb things like that.
That's not dumb. It's interesting.
At the time, it wasn't like cool, but I feel like now it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting.
I wish I did my papers on that. I'd know a little bit more about it.
True, exactly. So yeah, I would say just my own progression I've seen with my health by tweaking things in my diet. Just, I've always been very in tune with how I feel, like emotion wise. I feel like I can communicate that and understand why I'm feeling a certain way. So I think understanding that about when I eat a food too, of like, oh, I feel so good when I eat this food, or, ooh, maybe this food and I don't really have a great relationship. So I think just understanding and being in tune with your body too is something that I've grown in, and then has been part of the reason why I want to help others in that, because I know how good it makes me feel and makes my family feel, and just the impact that it can have.
What are some signs and symptoms that a person may, or yourself may have a bad relationship to a food?
I would say the biggest one would probably be bloating. I feel like that's such a common issue that so many people are having. And it can be caused by so many different things. For example, eating your food too fast, bloating. Eating a food that's, higher in sodium or fat that, your body just can't handle all at once in the portion that you're giving it. It could be a deeper issue where you have, some sort of bacteria or pathogen in your body, and you're not able to digest it as well as you should be able to. So it's like, it may not just be the food, but it may be the food triggering that reaction, which then goes deeper into, but why is that happening? So kind of assessing what makes up the food, and then let's look at, again, your enzymes. Do you have enough of your enzymes that help you break down carbs, your protein, your fats, things like that? And so just looking a little bit deeper and kind of assessing the food itself, but then also your body, and pairing them together.
When you're looking at something like that, do you look at let's call it the process of how the food is intaked, whether it be how fast, how soon was their last meal? You look at that before or after, like the biology of the body and the biology of the food? Is it process over biology, or biology over process?
I would say it depends on the patient. I do like to assess lifestyle things first, just to get an understanding. And then if something requires more testing, then I do it. Just because testing is such an expense. So it can be, a pretty high expense for someone to just do out of the gate.
Gotcha.
And so I do like to assess, like, how fast are you eating? Are you feeling overwhelmed or stressed while you're eating? Are you breathing? Just little things like that I do assess first. And then I assess at, each visit after, and say, what percentage are we at today? And from there, you can see a mathematical shift of like, oh, I was 100% bloated when I first started speaking with you. I would give it, maybe 2-3 months later, oh, we're down to a 15%. That's pretty good change. And so asking those little questions is actually a way that I start off all of my consultations. After understanding their concern and their health condition, I'll kind of break it down and be like, okay, how fast are you eating? How stressed are you? Let's talk about, small things of, spacing a meal if they have a specific gut concern that, a 4-hour apart spacing is best for them. We'll discuss that and set little goals to help them ultimately achieve their success, which I think is important, because when you have this huge overall goal, it can be so overwhelming and people will just want to give up. But when you break it down and you encourage someone, you're like, no, you got this. Like, let's work on, eating 4 hours apart. You can do that. Set a timer. Just little practical things I think is so helpful for people.
What's one takeaway that some of our viewers might adopt in their own life that you've seen maybe cause the biggest impact in terms of positive health?
I would say education, just like educating themselves on the world of nutrition, and just kind of, you know, understanding that better, or having a conversation with someone else who understands that better. And then also, honestly, just like slowing down. And I think just taking a minute to yourself to breathe and to just take a minute, because I think we live in such a fast-paced world, and it's oftentimes, you know, you got to do this, you got to be here at this time, and our body doesn't always operate like that sometimes. And so I think taking a step back and just, you know, giving yourself 30 minutes to eat rather than 5 minutes. Easy things like that. I feel like things that are common sense but sometimes are so lost in just how our world operates is one of the more simple, straightforward things.
Yeah, I know I can definitely use a little bit of that help. I used to eat like I was in prison. Yeah. The food's running off the plate. I don't know why or how, but we can cover that in a consultation.
Yeah. Exactly. I'll help you.
I appreciate that. So, I mean, I know like this is a passion of yours. What is it that, what else are you passionate about?
That's a good question. I would say, aside from nutrition, I think the like fun things in my life.
Yeah.
I would say I like some little things is like playing beach volleyball, soccer, spending time doing things I used to when I was growing up. So those things I really enjoy. So just being active, I think pairs with the nutrition aspect. And then I don't know, honestly, I just think like having like genuine conversations with people is something that's really important to me. I found that because I've moved so much over the years that I'm always moving to a new place where I don't know anyone. And so I think having more of an intentional, meaningful conversation with, you know, whether it's someone I know or someone I'm just getting to know is really important to me, because I think when I don't have those types of conversations, it does make me feel very homesick. So I don't know why. I just think like I grew up in such a, I guess, morally strong household, and I always have been very much like black and white on like this is right, this is wrong. And so I think having that like moral aspect in just my day-to-day conversations and with, you know, friends I'm trying to make here in Florida is something that I really value. I wouldn't say it's like a passion, but I think it's something I value. And then I feel like because when I have that, I feel like I'm able to fully put my heart into more of my fun passions, because I'm like, oh, I'm good. Like I feel safe, I'm comfortable, and then I feel like from there I can fully be myself in my other hosting hobbies or, you know, other sports activities, things like that.
Intentional conversation. Yeah, that's a little bit what this is. It's what I enjoy as well. That's interesting. Because who's got time for surface level crap? See the Yankees, see the score. Who cares?
I am a big Chiefs fan.
You're a big Chiefs fan. Okay. Well, they just won this year.
Yeah.
So
good job.
Congratulations.
You're up on the trends.
Congratulations. Yeah, I caught the second half of the Super Bowl. All right.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think it can. I mean, I feel like it can be a mix of intentional conversations and still also having fun, but also just having the ability to have that trust and safety with people. Especially, I think girls can be hard because I don't know, Florida girls, they're great, they're cool, but sometimes I'm like, okay, let's get to the heart of things.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I think sometimes it can be a little bit more about like appearance. So I'm all about like a cute outfit, but you know.
Yeah, I find that as well down here.
Yeah.
A lot of materialism.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
Which I do, I'm all about, but in moderation. Like I don't think that can ever be the focus of like any relationship, whether it's a friendship or whatever. I think material is fun and great and it makes things exciting, but I think, there's more to life than that.
Mm. Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment.
Thank you.
It is. It is. And it's refreshing. It's funny. I work with a Midwestern.
Yeah.
That's where
A
you're from.
Midwesterner.
Yes,
Yeah.
a Midwesterner.
We love a Midwesterner.
Yeah. And she was talking about, a lot of the like real Americans that come from that part of the country,
Yeah.
how they're very authentic and also very honest. We'll
Yes.
tell you how it is.
Yes, that can be one of my downfalls. I feel like sometimes I'm too blunt. Gets me in trouble.
What do they call that? Midwestern nice?
Yeah.
Is that what they call it?
Know, probably.
Yeah, it's too blunt though. Why do you say that?
Well, I would say this stemmed in Alabama mainly. Like I was surrounded by a lot of great people, but a different culture that can be a little bit more like hide behind a mask. I would say like fakey a little bit, like too nice.
Okay.
Where it like wasn't genuine, and so I think when I moved there, I feel like I'm a nice person for sure, but I think I just like still say how I'm feeling, or will be like, oh, like that's not cool. Like I'll just like say what I'm thinking in a nicer way, but it's still like blunt.
It's honest.
So it took me a little transition to be like, oh, like maybe you have to be a little more gentle in the approach sometimes.
Was that through self-awareness, or was that from somebody else letting you know this?
Probably both. There's not like a specific situation that stands out. I think I've always shown everything on my face, which I still do. But there's only so much you can do about that. I think just like maturing, getting older, I'm like, okay. Like I think something I've learned is like every single person is walking through something that you may or may not know about. And so rather than coming across, aggressive, blunt, judgmental, whatever the term you want to use, taking a step back and hearing someone out, understanding them more before having like a direct response.
How has that manifested in your life?
Today?
How has that manifested in your life?
I would say I'm like, how did I get to that point, or how do I see it in my life now?
How do you see it in your life, or how have you experienced that?
Okay, so when I first moved to Kansas City, I came from a very sheltered environment. I've gone to Christian school my whole life. And so I moved to Kansas City, and I was now going to a very public university. I was living downtown above all the bars and restaurants just by my little 22-year-old self. So I was surrounded by a lot of people that love to have a good time, love to party, which at the time I was pretty judgmental about, because I was like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, can't you have fun without like doing drugs or alcohol? Like, which, I think there's some truth to still, but I think understanding where they were coming from and just their situation that they were currently in, or their family life, it helped me humble myself a little bit and realize that I'm not this perfect person that's gonna point people like, I think when I moved there I was like, oh my gosh, like this is such a different environment, I'm gonna be like such a light to people. And I was very self-righteous, and in my thinking, I think I had a good intention, but it was just like, maybe you're not as good as you think you are. And so I think seeing people really struggle and whether it's coming out in whatever way they wanted it to, I was pretty judgmental because I was like, I feel so alone. Like, why is no one just like chill here? Like, I just want to like hang out and like have again like have an intentional conversation, but all these people just want to go out and party. And I think I ended up meeting so many great friends through that, and really realizing that like the meaning of life is not to be this person that I have to surround myself with all these like incredible people. Yes, that's the goal, but it's also like humbling my heart and my mind and being like, no, like I can sit with these people and be a friend to them, and they can teach me so much about life and about myself. So I think, yeah, very different, yeah, way of seeing life after Alabama to Kansas City. Still being blunt, but also being kind and listening more.
That's certainly a perspective change.
Yeah.
So it was Chicago, Alabama, Kansas,
Florida.
Then Florida.
Yeah.
So why Florida?
I've always wanted to live in Florida. Big beach girl. I always told my family I'm moving to Hawaii. I want to be a professional surfer.
Okay.
Haven't made that happen yet.
Still
Maybe
working on
the next step.
This may be the turning point. Yes. This may be it.
But Florida's been a perfect, step towards that. I don't think I'm going to go with that route anymore. But I think I've always wanted to live here. I don't know. I just have loved the warm weather. The people have always seemed relatively kind. Like when I visited and stuff, I'm like, oh, they seem cool. A little beach vibe to them. Didn't know much about it because I didn't grow up coming to Florida too much. But yeah, I think it's just always been like, oh, I want to move here. And I got a few different job offers after my master's program, and applied all over the world, a lot of them in Kansas City or in other areas. And this one came up and I was like, it's in Florida. Do I know anyone in Florida? Not really, but gotta go for it. So,
really? You don't know anybody here? Or didn't know
I knew
anybody here?
One girl that I went to college with, my bestie, Carly. And she ended up getting the same job that I did here. She was in sports dietetics, and then she was like, figuring out how to get a job in, that higher setting. Okay. And so I was like, yo, you got to come work with me while I'm moving to Florida. You're from there. Stay there for a second. She ended up getting the job. And so we worked together as coworkers. And so she's been like my rock, my best friend here. She just moved away to Chicago, actually. City swap.
She's going back up.
So, yeah, she was the only person I knew. So now I've just been making friends, going to F45, working out.
Shout out F45.
Shout out. And yeah, I've just been working, cooking, working out, making friends. So, definitely beach girl though.
Definitely beach girl. Okay. What do you look for? Living in a new city and adjusting and sticking. You've relocated a number of times. Yeah. You've found different people on your journey.
Yes.
And I'm sure 25, you got to start to be a little bit more intentional about how you're picking your tribe, if you will.
The tribe.
How do you go about that?
I would say from a young age, I feel like I've always been relatively discerning. Like I feel like I always have a pretty like strong gut feeling about people. But more practically, I would say normally I like to connect with like a small group or something through church. I haven't really been able to do that quite here yet, just with where I'm at. But I have found a lot of friends through work and through the gym, and I've met a few random people in coffee shops that want to talk. Sometimes I think I have a sign on my head that says, please talk to me, which is a great thing. But other times I'm like, why is this person talking to me? So, not overly wise advice on that, but still learning, still growing, I think it's just the people you come into contact with, and really going, for me, I really go into like every place I walk into, try to, with a smile. And I think that just automatically invites people in to be like, oh, she wants to talk to me, like, let's be friends. And so I think it's just having an open mind to putting yourself out there. And I would say I am an extrovert in a lot of ways, but also do like my alone time. And I feel like I'm pretty pretty independent. So I don't need someone to do, like, don't need someone to go to the beach with, don't need someone to go to a coffee shop with. So I think, I don't know, just having that awareness about yourself, and, trying to do your best to, be as good as you can be on your own. And then once you do find those people, it's more, I feel like it's a healthier friendship.
Yeah. Less of a codependency.
Yeah, yeah.
You have that positive relationship to self.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like, building that up for yourself?
I feel like growing up, I've always been very a go-getter. So I'm like, I can do it on my own. I don't need help. Okay. Or, but always in high school and growing up, I always had a strong group of friends too. So definitely still desiring that. And still here, like I have several friends, but they're all in different pockets. Okay. And so I think one of my biggest passions, going back to that, is hosting. And so my dream is to eventually have that like group of people that I can trust, rely on, but also have fun with. And that's hard to find. And I think it's just, specific circumstances, the people God brings in your life that gets you there. I feel like I don't have a specific method of how I make it happen. It's more just so like the people that are put in my path and like become such a blessing to me, and hopefully me to them. But yeah,
certainly you to them. Yeah, it seems that faith is very important to you.
Yes.
So you went to Christian school.
Yes. So both my parents were actually raised Catholic. So the nun story you gave, very specific for them.
Resonates with
resonates
mom and dad.
With mom and dad. Shout out mom and dad. But yes, I think from a young age we switched to the Christian church, and it has been something that I just think I have been able to cling to over the years of just, the situation with my dad of, not knowing if he was going to live, how it would look like if he did live, and just how his health would be. And I think just so many circumstances over the years have always brought me back to that. And I think it's something that, a lot of people, may or may not choose to pursue or focus on. But I do think it's something that I would continually like to focus on. I'm not perfect at it for sure, because there's so many different things that life can throw your way. And but at the end of the day, I do think it's something that has shaped my character and just how I'm able to communicate and encourage people, honestly. So I think it actually does play a pretty big role in my job and my relationships.
Encourage people. Why do you say that?
So I would say just, I think there's a special source of joy and grace that comes with having faith in general. And I think that, in certain situations where, something is going extremely wrong in life, and most people would be, pretty depressed or, anxious, other situations like that. And I've just found in my life that in the hardest moments, I'm still able to have joy and to give support to those around me, and to not to be strong, but to have that strength that I don't have on my own, I guess. And so I think, yes, you can still encourage people if you don't believe in God. I think you can still support people and etc. But I think it just makes it almost to a different capacity, a different level, when you have that source of life and joy coming from something other than just yourself. Spitting
powerful.
facts.
That's powerful. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I don't know where it came out of.
But. Listen, that's a vulnerable truth. That was powerful. Speaking of vulnerability, what does that look like to you in your life? Your intentional conversation takes a certain level of self-confidence, self-comfortability, and vulnerability to put that shield down and say, this is who I really am.
True.
If you want to speak truly intentional, taking that mask off.
Yeah.
How has that manifested itself in your life?
I would say, I think it's fluctuated over the years. I think, when I was 22 and I moved to Kansas City, I didn't really know fully who I was, and I thought I did. And so I think now I would say I've grown in that more so, but I think it's just not being scared of rejection and failure, because I think a lot of the times when people put up those masks, it's because they want friends, they want people to like them, they don't want people to know what they struggle with, because it's not something they're proud of, and neither am I, but I think it's just realizing when you humble yourself and share, your innermost struggles or something that's really, hurting your heart, I think it gives the platform for other people to do that too. And then, it becomes a blessing where you get to hear their story and support them in a way that, someone else might not be able to, just because you were open enough to share, what God's done in your life, or just some of the painful moments and how you've been shaped by those. So I think that's what I've seen, and everyone has those moments in their lives. I feel like no one's lived, happy every single day of their life, or stress-free, or health issue free. So I think it's just finding those connections and uplifting people, maybe whether they're in a good season or a harder season of their life.
How do you manage the harder seasons of life?
In my life, I would say definitely, I mean, there's moments where I'm sad. I feel like overall I'm a pretty happy, upbeat person. I think I try to see the good in every situation. But I would say in the harder seasons, I definitely rely on God, but also my closer friends that, I know will be there to support me and uplift me. So I would say my first instinct is to probably go to like a trusted friend, of being like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Like, will you talk with me about it? Or, do something fun with me to get my mind off of it. So I think I really value, again, intentional relationships when I am struggling with something. And I think that's what can be hard when you move to a new state. It's like, ooh, like something comes up and I'm like, ooh, but I don't know anyone here. So I think it just fluctuates again over the years, but oftentimes I would say turning to those trusted friends, those mentors. Exercising also does help, just release some of the stress, but things like that. Yeah.
You mentioned mentors.
Yes.
How have mentors played a role in your life?
I would say a lot of my mentors have been, family members, like my mom and dad, even my brother. A lot of teachers in high school, just being there to support me when my dad was sick, and understanding, I might not be doing as well in a certain test, or on the volleyball court. I was playing volleyball at the time, and it was just like some days were so tough because like I was so used to having the support of my parents, but it was like, oh, now my team wasn't that good. Sorry. But I was the captain of the team, and I was so happy. I loved playing, but at the end of the day, like, I think not having my parents there as my mentors and cheering me on, it just took a little bit of fun out of it and meaning. And so having those high school teachers and coaches there to support me during that was pretty instrumental, I would say. And then that carried on through college, college and even now, just having people to go to with, you know, a nutrition question if I don't know the answer, or someone that's smarter than me in my field. I think even those types of mentors too are important to have and hard to find, and one that I hope to be one day to someone else.
Have you served in a mentorship role to someone else?
Technically, yes, through a program in college. We had like a mentorship and nutrition part of our program, but it wasn't like you were kind of just paired up with someone, so it kind of depended on how much effort they wanted to put in versus how much you did. So
Gotcha.
I would say I've never been like a true mentor to someone, but I hope to be one day, hopefully.
I think if you stay on your path, you certainly will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any youngsters?
Any youngster?
Come to me.
Any aspiring dietitians?
Yes.
Volleyball players, soccer players.
I don't know how much skill I still have left, but
well, it's less about how the skill you have; it's the knowledge you can pass on.
Okay, I'll do my best.
That's what I found is important. You know, I can't shoot or as fast and accurate as I used to in lacrosse, but you know, coaching these little guys has been really rewarding.
You still coach?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. I was coaching a middle school up in Delray for a little while.
Okay.
But now I actually had a session with 3 of my ex-players.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Ex-players is so harsh.
Well, they're not my players anymore, so
old players.
It's not like I cut them. They're my ex-players. Yeah, they're not like ex-girlfriends. They're ex-players. But it was amazing to see these. You know, I coached them when they were in 6th grade.
Okay.
Now they're in 8th grade.
Oh.
And to see them come from these little guys to young men.
Yeah.
And to be able to see, you know, yelling at them when they were in 6th grade because they needed to be yelled at. And then now being able to talk to them like men and tell them to do something and not have to watch the whole time because they're actually going to, you know, follow through and do it. And be able to impart wisdom on a mind that's willing to soak it in. Yeah. As you said, working with that mentee, how much effort are they willing to take? It's not a give and take as you would prefer. But working with them recently was really fulfilling.
Nice.
And really rewarding. So I would highly recommend that.
Dang.
And it's a great way to get involved in the community.
I know. Yeah. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
My best friend from high school is actually a soccer coach. So she's like an inner city school teacher.
Okay.
And she has a big passion. She's very good at soccer. She played in college. But yeah, she's a coach and she loves it. So that would be a good something to look into. I also love kids. So I did a lot of babysitting and nannying growing up.
Okay.
And I haven't done that here because I've been working full time, but that would be a good fit. I'll have to look into that.
We'll have to do a follow-up episode and see how that might be going. Could that be an action step we could take away from here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
I like to challenge my guests a little bit. You know, what if that's what you want to take away, if that's what you want to promise your future self that you would dedicate time and energy towards. If that's not it, that's okay.
I could look into it. I don't really know how to get there. Like who to reach out to, what company / organization that would offer that, being honest. But yeah, I mean, if there was an opportunity, I'm a go-getter. I would get after it.
There's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about our future self. If we were to go back to see little Kayla playing little soccer and having fun and eating her candy and her sugar, if you could impart some wisdom on her at that age that she can carry through till now, what would it be?
Dang. I think probably don't be afraid to fail, because I am very type A. And so I think I always wanted to be perfect at everything I did. Still kind of do. But I have learned that if you're not willing to put yourself out there and take that risk, then you're never going to succeed at doing it, because if you don't try, then you're never gonna take that step to do it. So I think even putting yourself out there, making steps towards doing like a private practice, and having that mindset of, you know, you might fail, but it's going to be okay, and learning from that failure, rather than when I was little, I thought it was the end of the world if I got a C or like failed and I didn't score a goal. I would just be so upset. So I think just having that mindset of it's okay to fail, and you're going to learn from your failures, be better for it, and be, you know, stronger character, and maybe even more successful for it.
What's the last thing you tried and failed at? Or just put yourself out there. Forget failing. You challenge yourself to put yourself out there.
When did I do that?
When was the last time you can think
I actually
of?
have a situation where I put myself out there and I succeeded.
That's more of where
Okay.
I'm interested in the undertake of risk, less in the outcome.
Okay. This is more so in a social situation. So I've been trying to push myself and make friends here. And so I went to this like social gathering the other day. Yeah. And it was this group of people. They're all from a gym, not F45, sorry. And I went by myself, which I didn't know anyone except one person.
Okay.
And so, but they knew everyone. So that type of situation. And I went by myself, and I was like, oh, this is like so intimidating. Like, I don't know anyone here, and they know like everyone pretty much knew each other, or at least a few people.
Okay.
So I go, and I'm like, the whole time I'm like kind of nervous, but I'm like, no, I need to do this, like push myself. So then I first got there, and I became friends with these two girls that weren't even a part of the event.
Oh, really? Okay.
So like, okay, guys, like, thanks so much. Like, loved hanging out with you. So then I'm like, okay, I made friends with random people. Were they lifelong friends? Definitely not. But then from there, I'm like, okay, now I have to like go up and like talk to someone. Like, okay. So I went up. I ended up being the last person there and making so many new friends.
Wow.
Yeah. And friends I'll probably like hang out with, grab coffee with, some of which want to be my clients.
Really?
Networking.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I was pretty proud.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a big step. I think a lot of people are afraid to take.
Yeah.
They find their clique, they find their group.
Yeah.
And that's it. And they don't want to hear from other people. They don't want to know other people.
That's so harsh.
Am I wrong?
No, I mean,
like, is that like, I go out alone.
I love hearing from people, so I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I see it firsthand. I go out alone.
Dang.
Normal, like pretty. I don't go out as often as I used to, but when I first got down here, I'd go out alone every other weekend.
I don't know if I could do that.
If you just did what you did, you could definitely do that.
Yeah.
Other than like the safety, you know.
Yeah.
That's the one aspect.
Men.
Yes, men are terrible. Be better, guys. This is why you're watching this, to get educated. Be better. That's all we're saying. But when you go up to some people and try to make an introduction, try to start a conversation, some people are just so dismissive and so.
Yeah.
My experience with some certain people, I don't want to dissuade people from taking this risk, but some people are just disgusted that you would even like, why are you talking to me? Like, oh my gosh, you really hate your life. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. It was so, it was a lot more about them than it was about me.
Yeah.
And like, you see me in glimpses at F45. I'm same goofy.
Yeah.
Whatever throughout my life. I'm not going to change that.
Yeah.
And
how have you seen that play out in your life? Do you think it's come with like more successes than failures, or a mix of both?
What specifically are you asking about?
Like just like being yourself 100%, goofy.
You know, it's a great question. But I would say my unique experience that I've seen is that being uniquely yourself is going to bring the right people into your life a lot faster and the wrong people out of your life a lot faster.
True.
So if someone's unique and themselves and somebody's insecure about who they are, they're a lot more likely to say, oh, that person's too much. That person's out of their mind. That person is, they're a lot faster to judge. And I would say that I wore a costume of sorts and kind of fit a mold for the majority of my life. Up until, you know, and that was a person who existed. That was Pat. That was Pat, the party promoter, and Pat, another version of myself. That was authentically me for who I thought I was at that point in my life. Yeah. But I would say getting to live on my own and to find out who I really am, and to also see people do that, live authentically, live in a goofy manner. Like, that was one of the most inspiring things to me. Somebody just like dance, do stupid shit, like just be themselves to the highest degree, almost to the point where it made me uncomfortable. And it was so empowering. I was like, whoa, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know why I'm uncomfortable, but you're so yourself that it like the first 2 times it was that, then after it was just a fire of like, wow, I want that. I want to do that. And it was so empowering. And I haven't looked back since.
Dang. Crazy.
That's
how
great. It's affected my life. Yeah. It's been good. How has it living uniquely affected your life?
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think it brings the right people in your life when they can see your heart more so and be attracted to your heart more than, you know, your looks or appearance and things like that. So I would say it's been a positive experience for the most part. I think it's just, you know, finding those people and whether or not you cross paths. But I would say when you do, I think there's just such a peace that comes, because it's like, oh, you can fully be yourself. You don't have to, you know, go and hang out with someone, but then come home and you're exhausted because you like felt like you had to, you know, look perfect, be perfect. And so I think it's finding those friendships that you can be yourself, and then you walk away refreshed. And I think that's one of my biggest things is like, oh, I'm already working like a full day and maybe even working more after that. Like, if I'm going to go spend time with someone, I want it to be with like someone that is refreshing me and I'm refreshing them and not sucking the life out of them. Yeah. And I think that's common. Like, a lot of friendships can be like that. And so, yeah, I think by being myself and having that perspective, that heart shift, it has allowed for some of that. Again, it's like you can only do so much, but yeah, makes life definitely more fun when you can just relax and enjoy it rather than being stressed about fitting a certain mold.
It's unique when, as you expressed, when you're filled with energy when leaving someone, as opposed to being drained from energy. And I find that in work, if it's something you're doing and you're passionate about it, I'm sure you feel it at your job, with how you serve clients in that positive way. Do you?
Yeah. Okay. I definitely think some are more draining than others. But some conversations are very life-giving, and definitely fuel my passion of this is definitely what I'm supposed to do, and an excitement and joy that comes with it for sure. Most, I would say, are like that. There's just some select few that are a little more, you know. But yes, I would say, yeah, work does that for sure. And then friendships, even like exercising and hosting and diet, I feel like are so involved in that as well.
Exercise, hosting, and diet.
Yeah, maybe the wrong order.
No. There isn't a right order at all. Hosting, though.
I love hosting. So
tell me about
I
that.
haven't done it yet in Florida, but I love bringing people together. I love the idea of making a bunch of different fun appetizers. Normally I like doing it all myself. So, because I have a specific vision, and sometimes people are like, "Oh, here's a dip from the store," and I'm like, but like you could have like. Anyways, maybe cut that part out. So,
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Unless somebody just brought a dip to your house.
Love like the idea of creating something. I don't think I'm a very creative person. Again, the black and white, but not artistic. But I love bringing like a vision together with, fun people, a great atmosphere, having the fun appetizers, maybe playing a game or two, just having that social interaction, but also having like great quality behind the food, the conversation, the atmosphere. So sometimes I want to go into party planning, but not my calling right now.
Okay.
When I have a child though, the themed birthday parties will be
Yeah, that's it's growing up, my parents they host like 40 to 60 person parties like once a month.
That's how we did too.
It was wild.
Yeah.
And I hosted a barbecue for some of my clients.
Okay.
And I was stressing out about it. Like, am I gonna have enough food? Are these people gonna talk to these? The whole thing.
Yes, but then you come together and you're like, that was so fun.
I guess it's the old version of me meeting the new version of me, and we're trying to find this medium.
Yeah, perfect. Well, if you ever need some support, I'll help
some hosting support.
Yeah,
as long as it's your vision, though. We gotta have a vision board conversation.
I do a vision board. I just love like a classy little moment.
Okay.
But I can change things around, especially if I'm co-hosting. I've never had a person be like, "Oh, I want to co-host," or like, "I want to host something. Do you want to come?" I'm just a solo mission type of girl, but I could modify.
Well, you haven't had someone ask you to be on their podcast before.
No, I haven't. First time.
There we go.
I know.
Podcast and a co-host. Yeah. Look at this.
Yep.
Well,
future game night.
Look, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere here.
A collab.
A collab could work. Could work. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you having the testicular fortitude to come on. A lot of people don't have that.
What does that even mean?
Oh, you know what that means?
No. Maybe cut that out too.
Well, when someone is brave, they say, wow, that person has a lot of balls.
Oh, I see. It's like more of an inappropriate phrase.
Fortitude.
That's why I don't know what it means.
It's a more appropriate phrase for that inappropriate
expression. Yeah, maybe we cut
that. Listen, it's authentic. It's authentic.
I'm so sorry that I asked.
It's quite all right.
Anyways,
it's quite all right.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully I wasn't too bad of a guest.
No, you were an amazing guest.
Thanks for tuning into the My Tribe podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the follow button so you never miss a new release. You can also stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and your favorite podcast platform. See you next time.